thank you for joining us for the last official session on the conference program, which is informational in nature, I hope. And then the final event will be the conference dinner. Thank you very much for staying for this session. It's good to see a good number of you. For those on the live stream, my name is Jock. I'm the SAIIE president, and this session is going to be a panel discussion with some of prominent industrial engineers across various industries to ask them about what does industrial engineering look like right now, what should it look like in the future, and how do we get there. So we're going to open with some questions from my side, and then we'll open it to the floor as we go. So I'm going to start with Stanley, and then we're going to just ask them for a brief introduction, why they believe they've been selected to sit here in front today. No, I'm joking. So just a brief introduction, and then also a short story about where in your life did you apply an industrial engineering skill outside of work that made you go, wow, I'm so glad I'm an IE and I learned this. Microphone for Stanley.
Okay. Thanks, Doc. Yes, quick introduction. My name is Stanley McMillan. I'm industrial engineer from Tuckies. I'm in the logistics industry. Started off making beer with SAB, and then moved into logistics, and since then my whole career has been in that. I'm really interested in that. Current role is I look after all the industrial engineers in DSV. We do everything from front end right to the back. CIP, DSV Sigma, QC, sustainability, all of that. So that's me in a nutshell. The question, interesting one. I would say if you ask my wife this, she would say that I'm the 5S person. Okay, so I don't know if it's because of industrial engineering or the reason I became an industrial engineer. But I'm the person that sorts, I'm the person that sets in order. I do all those things. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. But the bad side of that, I'm not the shine person. All right, I don't clean. Even if I have cleaned, she comes back and says, this is not clean. All right. But so that's one example which I thought of, which will really use the industrial engineering skills amongst others that okay.
4 out of 5 isn't bad, Stanley. It's at least in his distinction. Courtney, can we ask you next, please?
Thank you, Jock. I've no idea why I'm here.
Everybody else does, so it's fine.
It's probably because I registered for the conference. But Jock, thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to be here. My name is Courtney Skutte. I'm an ex-Tukkie, and we actually counted all 5 here had studied at Tukkies, so which is amazing.
Including the host of the panel discussion.
Exactly, 5. But I'm currently with Stellenbosch University. I'm the chair. I've been the chair now for 8 years. And I think what makes it nice for me is that the position there enabled me to apply my industrial engineering principles there. And when I joined the university in 2005, this little department was the sore finger sticking out, and they wanted to close us. We had publication units of 0.34 for the whole year, which is shocking. Now we do about 70 a year, which is nice. Sure. So what we've done is we basically tried to apply engineering principles, industrial engineering principles, to understand the system, to see how we can optimize it to do that. And I think we've succeeded with that. We have a nice, transparent budget system. And when I took over as chair, we took about 11% of the budget of the faculty. And now we are at 22%. So we've been growing steadily over the past 8 years, and now we're no longer the smallest, we're now right in the middle of the bunch, which makes it very nice of me, is where I want to be. But personal life, it's actually irritating to be an industrial engineer because you never stop optimizing. If you are in checkers, you say, I would have done it this way. If you are at the bank, this way. If on a traffic light, what the hell have they done here? So that is the bad news. Thanks.
We'll get some notes from you for the conference, how you would have done it afterwards as well. Gerard, please.
Thanks, Jock, and thanks for the opportunity, firstly. It's extremely exciting for me to be here. If I also have no idea why I'm here. If you ask me a random guess, probably because of networking. I'm currently employed as the Chief Operating Officer for First Rand Bank that looks after FNB, RMB, Westbank, Aldermore, and Ashburton, the brands within the First Rand group. In my current capacity with such a big ship, it's a big ship to run apart from the bankers that you see on the outside and what you actually deal with. And the link between technology and the value propositions that we offer towards clients is often not a very effective one to try and close. So over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, I've been helping to structure the organization more optimally from an organizational structure perspective and making sure that the effectiveness increase across large operational areas. Obviously, lots of application of machine learning in the background, but also a positive effect to make sure we rather reskill people for the skills that we're going to need in the future instead of sacrificing jobs. And yeah, at the end of the day, making sure that we keep the cost base stable and now on a decline through the efficiencies, specifically as a result of COVID and the impact it's had on the economic sector. So that's very much what I'm about. If you ask me where I apply it in my everyday life, I think my biggest bugbear is in any service that just doesn't work. I think I'm a tough customer when it gets to that. And secondly, just where I've applied it to my life, I think industrial engineers, due to, I guess, the way we wired and school, just look at a different way and through a different lens to a problem. Where it's been in startups I've been involved in, an industrial engineer has a specific knack to, due to their limited exposure commercially through studies, and I think they're thinking around quality and effectiveness at the end of the day as part of an output, whether it's a product or whether it's a service, to holistically look at the ecosystem, which I think sometimes people lose sight of, and collectively see how you can make an improvement. And that, like Corne rightly said, I think applies in all ways of life. But you need to keep yourself honest so that you don't get too frustrated, I guess. But yeah, I think just through various ventures I've been involved in outside of my formal day job. Yeah, thanks.
So Gerard, being a difficult customer, what percentage of FNB's Hello Peter reviews would you say you have written?
Absolutely zero. If that was me, I wouldn't have been here today.
Thanks, Gerard. Ben.
Yes, thank you. I can tell you why this is the panel, because everybody is scared of answering that question. One, we've got the academic work, we've got myself from the public sector, we've got the private sector and the banking sector. I think that's optimization from the chair. Thank you for that. On top of that, as mentioned, I'm Ben Pires. I'm had an interesting journey. I normally say this in all my interviews and where I firstly engage. I'm a very bad engineer though. I studied industrial engineering and I think that contributed towards my current success in life. I'm a very good project manager though. I understand the project management field extremely well, which is my passion, but I would not have been able to ultimately get there if it was not for me studying industrial engineering. I think my wife is a better engineer than I am. She's an occupational therapist, and that's normally the industrial engineers of the medical field as well, so we relate very easily with each other. My journey started, I started with a very interesting project for all by ABSA, where I did the logistics modeling for payout points. You will understand that process. I then moved into consulting, and ultimately immediately into the project management field. I thought initially I'm just going to end up in the logistics, and especially transport logistics. That was very much a passion of myself. And then I ended up in project management, and I started off with small business improvement projects. I moved forward into a space of more construction-related projects. Did some further studies in the civil engineering field as well, just to enhance my knowledge. On top of that, I completed some of the PMPs and the IPMA Level B certifications, and then I'm currently, I was then appointed as the program manager at the city of Cape Town during the worst drought on 300 years that you all know about, where we had a very supply-demand approach towards solving the problem. And then ultimately, I'm currently the director for corporate project program portfolio management. My portfolio relates to the capital and the grant fund portfolio of all projects. Program management, to increase that and for everybody to understand what program management is. It's not just about creating and combining various projects. It's ultimately achieve benefits by consolidating those projects together. And then also project management, trying to make sure that we increase the competence and the maturity of project management within the public space, and contract management as well as engineering management fall under me. As mentioned, I'm not the best engineer. I've got a manager which is much more brilliant than I am, but I understand the technicalities of engineering very well, and I think that is the value add that industrial engineering brought into my space was because they touch on all the disciplines. It's very easy to relate to a specific problem towards getting an optimized solution. In my day-to-day life, I think on a general point of view, just delivering projects, I am having a great impact towards communities as well as stakeholders, people that's getting houses and interaction with those particular people on a daily basis. That's why I'm doing projects. It's for the ultimate benefit of our stakeholders, all those people that's in great need, especially in the Cape Town context. And then where I applied it, I think my best example would be when I constructed my own personal home. From a facility point and facility design point of view, I focused tremendously well on the internal layout towards optimization, make things easier for myself. I had drop boxes in my room down to for laundry into the laundry room. I had those kind of stuff that really just I applied my mind just to make my life easier for me, not to from the second floor or to the first floor move down and go and move my laundry down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. We can see you work in public sector. You ask for a brief introduction and you get a double helping. Oh, thank you. We're extremely excited to have all of you here today. As Ben rightly pointed out, quite a diverse set of panelists here: banking, engineering and logistics, public sector and academia. So really trying to give the audience a broad range of input and insights for where we are with industrial engineering. And I think with that, my first question to you is, within our existing industries that we have, where do you believe there is a gap that industrial engineers can fill or should be filling? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll start. I was first in, last out, first in, what's it?
FIFO.
Yeah, something like that. I know the term. Pretty much, I think there's multiple opportunities. And I'm going to talk from a project context and relate to my environment. I think there's a great gap in understanding the engineering disciplines all across the public sector. I find that is some of our lacking opportunities. With a focus on engineering as well as the construction side and the interfaces between various disciplines, I think it is very valuable and important that we try to increase the role of the industrial engineer in that particular space. moving into the space of more data, and I'm a big believer of making decisions based on data, historical trends, forecasts, and the like. We've been implementing and trying to implement various tools within the city of Cape Town to ultimately get us into a space of more data. Data science and data skills is very scarce at this point in time. I think that's a general trend across South Africa, and I think there's a great opportunity for industrial engineers looking forward with regards to the fourth industrial revolution and the like, to apply our minds a bit better into the space of data and the use of data, and how we can make informed decisions to ultimately get into that particular space. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Well, the benefit of going first is you can throw out all the key buzzwords and make it a little bit difficult for the rest of the panelists.
I was going to say,
We appreciate that. Right, Stanley?
Interesting. So it gives our age away, because when I was studying industrial engineering, it was which industries are we going to go in? And then I thought, which industries aren't we in today? And I don't think there's one. Okay. But yeah, mine, very simple, and I think it's more a wish from myself, if I can be really selfish. I'm not really talking about an industry, but sustainability to me is massive. And there is such a big one that we can go in, from carbon emissions, from sustainable design, from alternative energy, from building. We had a whole conference on that last year. But I think that is still an area to me where I think industrial engineers can make a much bigger impact. And well, because I know I'm involved in it, a lot of you are involved in it, so I think we actually will also make a big impact in that industry. So obviously I come from logistics background, so that is it. You know, what's alternatives to ships? What's alternatives to trucks, to airplanes, biodiesel, a bunch of these initiatives which we're really trying to be in the forefront of. And then, something like COVID really showed us, how do you just throw the whole supply chain upside down.
That readiness.
And what do you do? So I feel that's a specific area where I think we will definitely make a big difference in the future.
Oh, thanks, Danny. I think one of the terms that I've learned at the conference here is a lot of people are starting to talk about the triple bottom line, looking at the profits, the social side of it, as well as then the environmental side of it, and how that becomes sustainable. So I think as we go along, that is going to become much more important for all companies. And I think, as you said, it's not something we can really put to a specific industry. It's going to be everywhere. And industrial engineers as a catalyst for man, machine, and money is exactly that. And great point. Gerard?
Thanks, Jock. I think firstly, Ben, you've obviously got the biggest industry in the country GDP-wise, so there's definitely lots of opportunity there for optimization. And sustainability, definitely, people, planet, and profit. If we think towards the year 2050 and beyond, probably the defining factor of our generation will probably be the legacy that we leave on the environment. And this comes in various ways and forms, not only in the tangible, through pollution, etc., but also in the intangible, I guess more on the ethical side, what Jacques mentioned. And it goes towards responsible engineering, and responsible in innovation. I think that's really a field which is underutilized at the moment. And we do not apply our minds enough to how we're going to get there. My simple answer would be all industries. I don't think there's one specific industry that is going to stand out. But the biggest differentiating factor, I think, where we are now in this fourth industrial revolution, and what we find ourselves in is specifically this concept that you have 4 dimensions, and you almost added a 5th one. So I mean, dimensionally, you've got top, bottom, left, right, front, back, and there's a dimension of time, which is the 4th dimension. So and all of a sudden, we've almost got this dimension of cyberspace as a dimensions. So never before could you do something somewhere without being present. And that becomes a big challenge. So as part of all the technologies that we're busy deploying as part of this fourth industrial revolution, at the end of the day, there is a borderline ethically on the data that you share and decisions that you make on behalf of people, where these machines are ultimately trained on the back of our knowledge and decision making. So I think linking that back to the value that industrial engineers can add, what I have observed from my practical experience is that industrial engineers have a specific, a very unique capability to identify the commercial aspect of things. You, I think, limited exposure in curriculums like management accounting, financial accounting, etc. But simultaneously having understanding of the technologies like the data, but they're not experts in it. And what you often find in practice is that, I mean, you guys touch on it, but a lack of data literacy, data science understanding. So people always joke that industrial engineers is a jack of all trades. It just depends on what you want to go in specialize in. I think this is the cycle at the end of the day, and it's important that we also, I think, take a hard look at ourselves and make sure that we're setting ourselves up through training and maybe Courtney, you can touch on it, but making sure that we look at what the industry needs, not only now, by 2030, 2035, and beyond. So again, I guess back to this concept of ecosystem, you typically have a problem where you can find various different solutions to it. What an industrial engineer brings to the table is the ability to link the appropriate technology with the right value proposition and solution. And if we don't equip them with the right, I think, additional commercial understanding, we are limiting the value that they can make, and secondly, or can add, and secondly, making sure that they've got a good enough understanding of basic technologies like blockchain. In my personal view, blockchain will be the bank of the future. You either got to embrace it or you're gonna lose out. Classic Kodak scenario. So yeah, I think it starts from the bottom upwards. But positioning wise, we need to think about how we market ourselves. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Gerard. Yeah, just coming back to maybe the ethics of it and starting to build a lot of ethics into the way that we do things. Is we also need to teach the AIs how to be ethical, because one day if they take over, we hope that they'll also treat us ethically. Courtney, your answer, please.
Thank you. In 2015, we did a study, and I presented that study as part of the keynote in that conference that year. And that was basically the status of industrial engineering in South Africa. And one of the things we've done there was to say, where are the sectors that we are underrepresented in? And guess what came up? Public services. Teresa mentioned yesterday or the day before yesterday, there's 3 tracks. He said 3 tracks in public services now, in this conference. So obviously, something happened since then, so I can't say that any longer. Where are the new things now? I think we are now well represented in most sectors. At that time, we were doing extremely well in the services sector and also in the ICT sector. And at that time, I think manufacturing was in a decline, and I think that's still happening, and I think that's what's happening in the economy. But I think where the new excitements are coming in is especially in the ICT sector as well. I think FNB was one of the leaders in employing engineers. And there was just an advertisement last month where FNB was looking for 300 new people they want to employ. And the top of the list one was industrial engineers. But it goes on, and you will see quickly where the focus is. Cloud engineering, data scientists, data analytics. And I think that's where we're going to, is there's a new sort of skill level that's being required to keep us relevant in the future. To build up on that, FNB was actually not first with the advert. Capitec was first. They were a week before FNB. And they advertised for 300. And they actually were planning on 500, but because of COVID, they scaled it down to 300. And then the Laggard Absa came around also, sorry, and advertised also for 250 people, just a week later. So it shows that there's a huge gap in the market. But there's also a shift happening because we know poor things happen. Bad things happen for people like Eskom, who nobody wants to work for some reason, and Sasol, that had to downsize. So there's actually a resource moment, possibly engineers who are looking for jobs. So we need to also enable people to move their skill set to these new areas. And I think that's very exciting, these new opportunities on what we can do from an education point of view in enabling people to be ready for these new markets that's becoming available. Don't know if I need to add anything else here, but from my side, extremely exciting. And we will see this move in ICT. Oh, just to add to that, as part, we basically saw this gap from the university side and say, okay, we need to try and pivot engineers to move towards new career options. And so we started to interview, and we started with Jacques Villiers at FNB, and he immediately grasped on this. You can see engineer is the leader there. They go for things like this, even despite he's a civil engineer. We also spoke to Capitec, but we also started to speak to other people like Sutari, who is a consulting, civil engineering consulting company. We also spoke to a lot of data science companies, smallish companies, but we also spoke to the motor industry, specifically BMW and Mercedes. And one of the amazing things about BMW is that they see themselves as the fastest growing IT company in South Africa. And nobody knows it. They basically build all the IT software for the operational management of all factories all over the world in this country. Nobody knows it. At the moment they have a shop, 1,200 people. They want to grow in the next 3 years to 3,500 people. It will be computer scientists, engineers. So lots of opportunity. Mercedes-Benz a little bit slower. They're currently at 120 people, growing to 185 this year. And they want to grow to 380 in the next 2 years as well. So also a lot of growth opportunities there as well. So go and Google a little bit DevOps Hub. If you actually go on BMW's website, the new CEO, you will see it. He mentions there the fastest growing portion in his company is the DevOps Hub, South Africa at the moment. And go and Google also the IT Hub of Mercedes-Benz in East London. So huge opportunities, and we need to become ready for those. We as engineers, I think, are extremely well positioned because we have this basic skill set. But there are new things becoming available that we need to become aware of. For example, how do we put an application in the cloud? How do you work with things like Azure and AWS? Another thing, Amazon is opening their head office or a big office in Cape Town. So there are a lot of people going to compete for the same skills, and it's a huge opportunity for us to make something worth that.
Oh, thanks, Gordon. Shining a light there on, I think, a lot of interesting and exciting opportunities for industrial engineers. And I think as we move on with time, that ability to pivot from not just in your career, but across complete industries is going to become more and more important moving forward as we need to adapt with uncertainty and the disruptions. At this point, I want to open it up to the audience for questions if you have any for the panelists right now. Yeah,
So I've, in I want to say almost the last year or so, like come in contact with donut economics, where it changes how we start thinking the triple bottom line, and then not just sustainability, but regenerative, almost design of systems and places and what we do. I know you're saying there's space for sustainability for that, but do we need to go and create that? Or is it there we just need to become part of it? Or do we need to start, I want to say, writing the value proposition for why we need to go do that?
SD, right? To answer you, I think from my perspective, it's firstly an awareness responsibility, and that doesn't only fall on industrial engineers. I think it's a global concern. So if you start looking internationally, like places like the Arizona State University is starting to offer bachelor courses in environmental responsibility, for example. And at the highest level, I think this is something which I mean, you've got something like the requirement for integrated reporting, if you start looking at financial reporting, which actually obliges companies to talk about the impact on the planet and people. Because what you find today is, I mean, especially in South Africa, corporates have a bigger influence on society a lot of the times than what I think the actual public sector has, and you've seen it through COVID. But it's important that they efficiently work together. But I guess hence the importance that we create awareness, especially through, I think, a body like SAIIE, along with EXA, for what we can do for an engineering community, and make sure that people are adequately skilled to understand what that impact means across a multidimensional facet. That really, I think, is the starting point.
Yes, if I may, I think I'm the head of the IPMA Smarter Cities Special Interest Group worldwide, and from a smarter cities, we all try to get into the world of a smart city, and it is there's a different approach that we followed, and we said, let's move away just from the technology enabler, but to try to focus on three major elements, which sustainability is one, but what we forget about is the livability and the workability component that we need to create and deliver in the space of smarter cities. And then what happened from that particular point in time was that we started research, and we started to understand that we know that the population is growing. We know that in 10 or 20 years what the projected number of people around the world will be. And we also know that approximately 90% of all people will stay in cities, which then creates a gap within a rural environment, especially from an agricultural point of view. And if you start there thinking about that long-term possibility and what the net impact is going to be on the rural side, then one needs to start creating, isn't that also the next opportunity for us as industrial engineers to ultimately come to the front?
Thank you very much, Gerard and Ben. Really, really good answers there. I think the livability around the smart cities, we're so focused on the technology, but we really, as industrial engineers, also have to focus on the people in those environments. We've got another question over here.
Okay, afternoon to our panelists. My name is Stephen Zulu. I am a metallurgist. I'm not an industrial engineer, but I'm excited to be among the industrial engineers. I've learned a lot in the last 2 days. I've got two questions. I won't direct to anyone specific, but if maybe most of the panel members could comment. The first one is our parastatals are battling, and in most cases it's due to poor efficiencies. So I was wondering what could the industrial engineers actually do to assist the country, because we are in the mess that we are in as a country due to issues in our key parastatals. And I think the industrial engineers, they can actually make a big impact there. That's the first question. Then the second one is, of the 17 sustainable development goals, which one do you see to be a low-hanging fruit that the industrial engineers can actually have most impact on? It's a lot of them, and to actually say you want to have impact on all of them might not be easy, but is there anyone that comes to your mind that will say this one is a low-hanging fruit the industrial engineers can have most impact on? Thank you.
Anybody want to?
Mr. Zulu's questions are way too difficult.
He's a plant. I couldn't ask the difficult questions from up here, so.
Maybe a quick response. Where's your promoter now? We need to speak to your promoter as well. Mr. Zulu, the low-hanging fruit, I think, I don't know the sustainability goals that well, but the one that we like to focus on is healthcare. And I think that's where we can make an impact. There's actually within our university and within our department, the faculty, there's quite a focus on healthcare. As a matter of fact, I saw this morning again an email that coming in from Germany, Fraunhofer Institute, where they want to help working with us to build up a better healthcare system, and the logistics that go with that becomes a very challenging thing. We're also working at the moment with Imperial Logistics, which is a DSV competitor, sorry about that, where we actually are focusing on healthcare. So that's one of the things I think that is a low-hanging fruit for me that is quite attractive and will make a huge impact. But on the other hand, I'm also a capitalist. I believe that a strong economy solves a lot of problems. And I know this is not always the same common belief, but I think that if we as industrialists do what we do best, and that is to build our economy by making more money for less cost and looking at all of these other things we need to do with that, like sustainability and so on, we are going to build a better South African end. And that's the biggest contribution we can make. By bringing in business from outside because we are excellent, for example, what BMW is doing now, we build a better country. By bringing in foreign capital like that, we build a better country. By being able to produce food more cheaply for the masses, we build a better country. So I think we're all contributing to a lesser extent or a more or a bigger extent, depending on what you're doing. As long as we are industrial engineers, we will contribute, and that's what we do.
Thanks, Courtney.
Yes, if I may, and I was going to touch on just a follow-up from Prof. Skutte, and then, but just to answer the first one in terms of integrity, I think that's, and about the values and how we change the corruption mindset within the country. In my opinion, it's the integrity and the ethics values that needs to come through. I know that when I was studying, and I believe that's still the case. I haven't been a student for some time now, but we had we were at a final year subject called ethics and stuff, where you had to apply various mindsets from that particular point in time. And I know that they're trying to get that ethical behavior also now in school and secondary schools and the like forward. And what I think is important is that we don't just take those things for granted and use it as a tick box item, but as to learn from those particular things. There's a reason why there was a focus 15, 16 years back when I was still a student on ethic and ethical behavior, and that was before the time when we experienced the last 12 years of huge corruption within South Africa itself. To touch further on the build-up of the economy, I'm responsible for projects in the city and the portfolio, and the only way to deliver on a strategy, in our belief, is via enabling projects and programs to ultimately deliver on a strategy. We've been the first metropole in South Africa that developed the infrastructure portfolio. With a focus, because we believe that the enabler towards economical growth is via infrastructure delivery. That's how we create the next opportunities, and that follow up there's a nice big economical word where everything multiply effect, creating the multiply effect ultimately. And in our portfolio, we started looking not just in the normal sense, our municipalities just look in a 3-year horizon, and we're pretty much the first metropole municipality in South Africa that developed a 10-year portfolio of projects that we know exactly what's happening within the next 10 years of our plans. Whether it's ideas, whether it's feasible projects and the like, that is what we try to establish. But we don't want to get into a particular point in time where you haven't had your preparation and your upfront project lifecycle work from scoping, feasibility, and concept design all in place. Then you receive budget and you cannot deliver on the budget. Remember that we're working with the ratepayers' money. There is vulnerable people, and there's the business context that we talked about that is very vital for us from a public sector that we need to keep happy and keep on delivering. And the only way for us to do that is ultimately to create that pipeline of projects, prepare them well. Once they're prepared, feasible, principle, and we looked at all the options with a great focus on socio-economic benefits and that we're trying to achieve, and specialization as well as strategic components. We move into the phase where we start with project implementation readiness and those kind of things that we're doing.
So Ben, in short, you guys are building up the country by building up the country.
We're the trendsetters.
Stanley?
Yeah, my comment on that one. So I would say that, so just DSV is a Danish company. And when the Danes came here, we told them this thing. He said, how do you eat an elephant? And you do it bit by bit. And they loved it. Okay, so now they say it to everyone in the world. Okay, but that's the point. So if you're trying to solve the parastatal one, it's too big. All right, but if you look at a number of smaller things, and I'm just thinking, you know, so you will remember many years back there was a big issue of actually getting school books to children. Okay, and it was one of the projects that we got involved in, and how do we get it to the children so that everyone has access to that? There's an example now of the vaccines. There's an example now of chronic medicine. So I think the industry is taking a lot of this small chunks and saying, how can we actually take that and improve it a lot? And then your second question on sustainability, I don't really know if there's low-hanging fruit, okay? But what we have done in our area, we said, let's focus what's in our scope, which is the scope 1 and 2 emissions, and let's work on that, and you can at least make a difference. But it's such a big area that I don't really know if there's something we can say, here's a quick one that we can actually do.
Thanks, Stanley, for that African wisdom.
I picked up my phone and had a quick catch up on the sustainability goals. It's been a while since I looked at it, but definitely to answer you on low-hanging fruit, I think goal number 8 on decent work creation and economic growth, there's a vital role that industrial engineers can play in that in various facets. And just secondly, I mean, there's a bigger goal also as part of those to limit inequality globally. And there's a structural problem in the South African economy, which isn't something that is a quick fix. I think Ben absolutely nailed it when he said it's an integrity problem. I think there's been lots of historical decisions that was made that is not a short-term fix. It requires a long-term vision in order to turn it around. And then finally, I think the last goal, number 17, on collaboration and collective partnership. And we did touch on that, I think, between the public and the private sector in South Africa. It's probably some of the lowest hanging fruits, because if you create decent work opportunities and you grow the economy, you start fixing inequality as a result of that. And then just on the parastatals, I think that's it. And then the second thing I wanted to comment on is that there's this whole concept of a platform business. We live in a platform business area, or era rather, where if you look at a classic example like Airbnb, for example, it's a platform business that brings communities together, but you have your clients and your providers all sitting on the same platform. You've got no infrastructure really with a lot of back office staff. So if back to Courtney's comment on JARC, I've had lots of conversations in the past, I mean, around replatforming. That's actually the strategy towards 2025 for FirstRand. Although it might not seem that way, there's a fine balancing act to try and maintain our existing delivery and value props in our clients, but we are entirely replatforming the bank in the background to set us up as a platform business for the future. So I think industrial engineers has such a vital role to play in that, but I think there's a certain element of commercial understanding that we can bring to the table, or probably equip industrial engineers better with to be a greater value add. And it's all around, I think, the marketing. Like personally, I must confess, as part of my business studies, marketing was probably the one subject I got the most value from. You do not realize how vital it actually is. So just the positioning of an industrial engineer, I think that concept and how we position it and how we market it to future students, I think is really, really important. And then simultaneously, Courtney did comment on it, it sounds like there's lots of interaction with the private sector, but the way that you position them, I think inevitably, whether it's process re-engineering, I mean, if you look at something like ESCOM, it's probably the last job in the country I would like to have to try and turn that around, apart from the presidency. But yeah, all around, I think in all walks of life, industrial engineers can make a difference.
Courtney, do you want to comment on that? Oh, all good. Next question, there in the audience.
Yeah, so Gerard, you mentioned earlier that you think that blockchain will be the bank of the future and it's something we need to accept. And based on that, this can be a question for the entire panel. What is the role, what do you see or foresee the role of the industrial engineer or the contribution towards businesses transitioning to new technologies? Yeah, so what role would we play, and is it an important role? Thank you.
I think I also just want to add to your question and make it a bit broader and say, where are industrial engineers in all the new emerging spaces going to have to play a role, especially in the tech space, like with all the emerging technologies, how do we see industrial engineers play the role there?
Look, I think it's vitally important today. The one subject which I absolutely hated at university, which was the management information system, database design. But today I realize how absolutely vital it is. Although I just scraped through it, I later on in life realized it. So there's lots of technologies as part of this fourth industrial revolution. I don't think industrial engineer will ever be an expert in it, but blockchain is merely one of them. There's machine learning, there's artificial intelligence, there's the Internet of Things that connect everything. I think having a firm foundational understanding what a industrial engineer brings to that, for example, the future of something like blockchain, is there's various iterations of implementations often around how to do things as a first phase, and then you start improving. What you often find is you, in practice, find specialists that understands the technology extremely well. They do not necessarily understand the value chain very well, and that is something which, in essence, industrial engineers, I believe, are trained to do, to optimize, whether it's a production facility or any delivery value chain in Stanley's world, to understand that process, how to optimize that process, and look at the technology, and be able to assess at a high level and say, okay, well, this is the most appropriate for the business outcome that we want to achieve, and building that ecosystem in such a way and giving guidance, because it ultimately, at the end of the day, remains a business decision. And I think going forward, that's really where industrial engineers can play a massive role and make a big contribution. Is again adding that link between, I think, the business outcome and the value proposition, understanding the technology to a sufficient level to work together, but not necessarily be the technology enabler.
I'll add one comment. Yeah. So again, if you look at the logistics industry, what I've seen is, in the past it was, are you an industrial engineer? Yes, go do time studies. Okay, go do this, go sort out that process. So a lot of the industrial engineers were in the, call it the warehousing environment, manufacturing environment, process environment. seen it move a lot towards, okay, now we need to look at networks, we need to look at route optimizations, we need to look at the supply chain as a whole. And these days, what I'm seeing a lot is what he touched on, robotic process optimization, innovation side, and the industrial engineers are really taking a lead role on that. And what we find a lot is we go and we train them very, very well on RPA, and then they go to the banks. So, but yeah, we can definitely see that evolution in that direction.
Just send the mic that way. Yeah. Oh, you got it.
I don't think I have anything to add at the moment, so just want to ask another question.
Okay.
Just
Ben?
from my side,
Yeah.
just while we're talking about the optimization and processes and everything, you welcome to come and talk to me. I need an industrial engineer to solve the supply chain management process issue within government, which is quite quite a challenge itself. When I just started with the city, I can remember when I did consulting, it normally took me about 4 to 6 weeks to get a procurement through from specification to award, and then
Sure.
we're all of a sudden in the public sector it takes about 9 months. So you're welcome to come and chat to me if you have any solutions towards that particular problem in the government.
Yeah, that's gonna take some tenacity to be able to work through that one. So, any takers? It might be a good master's dissertation. I think solving that is maybe worth a PhD. But yeah, any other questions in the audience right now? I've got another one. It might be the last one. I think we almost coming up on time. All of you are industrial engineers in quite prominent positions within your respective fields. I think everybody well respected. In what way could you leverage your positions and influence to get more industrial engineers into positions of impact where you are?
Okay, I'll start with that one. So first, let me start with this. I think I'm quite proud. We 5 business units in DSV, and of the 5, the 3 of them, the managing directors, are industrial engineers. Okay, so that's how you start. You get them right to the top,
Yeah.
and then everything will happen. Okay. No, but what we do a lot, and been involved in this in years, is developing graduates. Got a graduate program. Moment, look at bursaries, look at really picking up the industrial engineers early, bringing them into the business, and then training them through that. And like I said to you, I've really seen career paths. Some stay in the specialization area and others move into operations. Also specifically proud, the latest MD was actually a guy I brought into a graduate program.
Wow.
So that's a good, that's nice. Then working with universities and research, and we do all the universities, even though I'm from Takkies, we really do everyone, including Stellenbosch, which is really difficult, but yeah. No one in Cape Town wants to come to Joburg. Okay. So yeah, we really work with universities on that, developing the youngsters, working on projects, sponsoring masters. So there's lots of opportunity where we work together. And then the last one where we're probably not doing enough, and I'm speaking for myself, is around the marketing, supporting institutes like SAIIE, organizing tours, all of that type of thing. I think specifically in our area, that's definitely a gap. But in terms of the others, we really have seen it work, and I mean, I've said to them, my goal is, I know I'm going to lose 10 industrial engineers per year to other industries, so I need to bring 10 in. And that's really what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stanley. Really appreciate your contribution.
Yeah, I think Stanley hit the nail on the head. There's not really much more I could really add. From a first-round perspective and banking sector perspective, FNB was really one of the first banks that started embracing engineers. I was speaking to Teresa earlier, and she mentioned the largest portion of her students over the course of the last 10 years went to F&B. I think we've really seen the value, and again, I mean, I started in a graduate program at F&B. I was just adamant out of my studies and for my final year dissertation that I was not interested to go and work in any of the traditional sectors. If it took me 3 more years, I'll find a project that excites me. And I was fortunate to get into that. I think at that point in time, there was probably, I think, about 6 engineers in FirstRand. As a collective, which Jacques was one of, we now sit with over 800 engineers in an entire group. Which I think, just commenting on that, we've brought a lot to the table to really embrace the thinking which an engineer brings to the table, the way that a doctor or someone that studied medicine or law or whatever, the way of problem solving is just different. It's not wrong. So there's those graduates also, but. Spot on, Stanley. I think it's really about collectively through our governing bodies like SAIIE. I think in close cooperation with EXA, working closely to make sure that we think about the policies to give in various sectors outside of manufacturing, etc. where you do not often find professional industrial engineers. There's not a lot of them out there. Every second mechanical or civil engineer is appearing. To support them on that journey towards, I think, professionality, and the duty is as much, I think, on the private sector and the companies we work for as it is supporting. And secondly, I mean, it's a feedback loop. We're making sure that we travel from Tikkies to Stellenbosch and go and chat about what needs we have, and them also giving us some feedback from what they're observing in the classrooms and academically from research. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Gerard. We appreciate that. And yeah, it's amazing to see how the banking sector has also grown to adopt that engineering mindset. Courtney?
Thank you. Yes, fully agree. And again, FNB is one of the driving forces at the moment. Being a university, working for a university, we are supposed to enable this. And I think universities have long been living in a comfort zone, not adapting to what the market requires. And I think that we have turned the wheel slowly, and in the last 3-4 years, I think the universities are driving a lot more to be much more relevant for what our economy and what our market needs. To give you a few examples on what we've done lately is our engineering faculty had seen this huge data science, data analytics drive. At the moment, each and every engineer, irrespective of discipline, gets a data science introductory course as part of his 4-year program. And that is completely new, I think, in a sense. I think the first university is actually doing it at the moment. So we try to be relevant and we try to move faster. Universities are actually like a big oil tankers. They are very slow to turn. To get a new program approved takes you 3 to 4 years to get it approved, and then it takes another 4 years before you deliver the first graduates. So it's a very slow process of getting it through. So we sometimes need to be very innovative as well. Again, in the data sciences field, we had to piggyback on an existing course, and we took electronic engineering and we built a data engineering course on top of that. And we actually got EXA to approve it for us as well, and to accredit it. And those students are now in their 2nd year, so we are going to deliver their first data engineers in 2 years from now, which is going to be nice. And there's a small group at the moment. I think currently the first enrollment was 30 students. This year they grow to about 50, and I think next year it looks like about 80 that's enrolling for this, but it's growing and it's growing steadily. Another thing that we've done is we also saw the data science on the postgraduate level, and that's where our department again came in. And again, we piggybacked on the existing course, and we could, before the rest of the university, roll out as data science masters in our department. And we have currently over 100 students in that program, which is amazing. As engineers, but also scientists, if you have a good mathematics statistics background, we enroll you in that. But we also know that that is still not fast enough, because the structured masters will only give you somebody in the market 2 years down the line. And we started the beginning of last year with this, and we are going to graduate our first master students end of this year in that field. And it will be a small batch, about 30 students going out. So going back to this whole pivot thing, the one thing that university actually can do very quickly is in provisioning short courses. And that's where we actually had a very close collaboration with FNB lately. In that we started developing parallel with them also data science short courses, and they are sending students every year into that now. And now as part of this whole program, we said that it's a huge benefit now for companies like UPSA, FNB, and whatever who want to have cloud engineers and industrial engineers and whatever, is that we are going to introduce a short course program next year that's going to pivot engineers. To make them aware, we basically have going to present 5 short courses. The one is information systems engineering, cloud engineering, data engineering, which is the whole data methodology flow, and then machine learning and artificial intelligence, and then also data analytics for engineers. 5 courses. And depending on what you want to do, you can do that. It's basically going to be a 3-month course, basically spread part-time online. That's the one thing that COVID teaches. We can be a lot more effective and reach a lot more people now by doing things online. So keep an eye out on LinkedIn and Facebook. You'll see that in the next month or 2 that we start advertising. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. You don't have to take all 5. You can go and look at it and say, okay, that's the one I need. And that's one of the things that we can help in getting people ready for the new opportunities, new options that are available there.
It's incredibly exciting work that you guys are doing with the universities, Courtney, so really also appreciate that. And yeah, absolutely with COVID teaching us that we can make a lot more things much more accessible, and why don't we do this sooner? Ben, please.
Yes, I'm going to take it from a different angle, and while we sit with the theoretical aspect, there's a huge gap, especially within the public sector, with a focus on project management specifically, towards bridging the gap from theory to practice. Within the city of Cape Town, project management, engineering management, and contract management is seen as a scarce skill, so there's great opportunity towards growth. I'm appointing approximately 20 or 25 odd individuals just within the next 3 months.
Industrial engineers, you mean?
Whether they apply, I just need to follow the process. So yeah, you're welcome to apply. But there's a real great gap in that. So we've got also the mentorship programs and the trainings and specific focus on how we do projects from a City of Cape Town perspective. We believe we are very unique. We're different than the trendsetters across South Africa. And therefore we send all our project managers to a specific course just with focus on how we do things in the city itself. But I then decided to change my strategy, because there's 3 components that's required to increase the competency of the individual, whether it's the industrial engineer, whether it's the project manager. And by the way, we all do project management on a day-to-day basis. We all plan, we all execute, some better than others, but Prof. Skutte will agree with me. Some of our electrical engineers always believe that they're not needed, and they don't need project management as a course for some odd reason. But we do that anyway, and it's a matter of how we do that. And what I've done is to change the way of thinking a bit. If you want to increase the organizational maturity from a project, program, portfolio, engineering, contract management point of view, you also need to have the individual to contribute to that success. And if you focus on your individual, bridging the gap from theory to practice via the practice skills, the soft perspective skills, your people skills, then ultimately will enable the opportunity to grow the maturity, but also deliver on projects. And when you deliver on projects, your maturity of your organization also increase. And if you have that focus of that 3-legged approach, then there's opportunity definitely for all the individuals to play a huge role in that particular space.
Thank you very much, Ben. And now that everybody has answered how they are going to contribute to industrial engineering, I would like to remind you that the session is recorded and we will hold you to this. Yeah, so we've unfortunately run out of time. I think we could go on for days and days talking about industrial engineering. I think the message that I'm taking away from here is really a message of hope and encouragement for the relevancy of industrial engineering going forward and into the future. There's so many existing opportunities in existing spheres, and there's so many new opportunities coming out and emerging where we can see industrial engineers are going to play a role, are going to add value, are going to contribute to the people, planet, profit bottom line as well. So yeah, incredibly exciting. I really want to thank all four of you for contributing significantly to this conversation today. And yeah, thank you guys for your attention. Really appreciate you. And well, this concludes the panel discussion. I'm sure everybody except Gerard is joining us for the dinner tonight. But if you can ask Gerard to hang around for a couple of minutes for conversations if you guys have some more questions. And then just practically, please go rate the sessions on the app. We are busy finalizing that. And then we will see, hopefully, most of you at the dinner tonight at the conservatory. Thank you very much.